I recently returned from a trip to the Philippines where I met my remote team for the first time in person, including a team member who I've been working with for over 4 years. I just want to share with you how I ended up with a remote team and how I finally took this recent trip. It's something I've wanted to do for a couple of years now, and I finally just decided to pull the trigger, and I'm going to do at least 2 videos on this. This one will focus more on my personal experience with working with and building a remote team, and then later I'll post another one more about the tax implications and the benefits of the travel, the meals, deducting family members, and all that good stuff. So I have 1 or 2 old posts in a CPA social media group that I'm in that mention my remote team members in the Philippines. And even today, I occasionally have other CPAs or accountants contact me who want to learn more about my experience. I've spoken to a handful of them on the phone to answer all their questions I can about it. So today I thought I'd just share how I got started and what I've learned along the way, and of course touch on some of the tax implications in my next video. And this isn't just for accountants. A lot of my reseller and online business clients utilize overseas remote teams for listing inventory, customer service, graphic design, video editing, and the list goes on. I started my Amazon reselling business in 2016. At that time, I had a full-time corporate job in finance, but I'd started doing taxes on the side, and that's about the time I started shifting my tax practice to helping online sellers. Just after that, my wife and I sold our house in Michigan and moved with our 4 kids to Central America. Why? I don't know. There might be something wrong with me, but for the years prior, I had just felt restless. I wanted an adventure. Both my wife and I had lived in Latin American countries before, and we thought it'd be amazing to one day take our family to live abroad for a year. We finally set a date and started saving money. Nicaragua at that time was safe, it was cheap, and it was relatively close, and we loved the idea of a more immersive Spanish experience for our kids. That was the first time I didn't have a full-time job. I had a small base of tax clients, and I started to focus more on my tax business and specialize in the reselling space. I wasn't sure if when we came back home to the States if I'd get a full-time job, aka a real job, or try to grow my CPA firm. Ultimately, I decided to stick with my own business, and by the end of 2020, I'd grown to a point where I knew I was going to need some more help. I didn't necessarily feel like I could afford hiring a US accounting college graduate, and if I did, I wasn't confident they'd stick around. It's just so common now to frequently change jobs for the upward mobility, so I started looking abroad. Now, there are 2 main ways you can do it. You can use a company that either finds or provides the remote talent for you, or you can go direct. I knew of another firm that employed one of these companies and had a handful of team members in the Philippines. I read all their posts where they talked about it and ultimately ended up speaking with that same outsourcing company. This particular company had determined that the Philippines was where they were going to focus exclusively. They told me all the reasons why, and I was pretty much sold. Not necessarily on the company, but on finding someone in the Philippines. I interviewed a few candidates they provided, but didn't ultimately feel like they were the right fit. And on top of that, the way they work is that you give them $15 or $20 per hour or whatever it is, and they give the worker maybe half that. I decided I'd rather find someone on my own and pay them the full amount. Some people do opt to go direct and pay the lowest possible wage, but where I've landed is that I can pay many times more what the remote worker would make locally and still be paying half of what I'd pay someone locally here in the States. So I think for us, it's a win-win. Not everyone will agree with that, but it's been a good experience so far, and the team is starting to log some longevity. I wanted to build a team that would stick with me long term, and paying fair wages has contributed to a great working relationship. It's also helped me reduce turnover and create a more engaged team. There are a handful of good websites you can use to find your team. My first team member I ended up finding through LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn a whole lot, but I had posted the job on the Philippines LinkedIn, and that's where I ended up finding her. After a couple of interviews, I brought her on and started some training. This allowed my business to continue to grow, and I could focus more on client communication and meetings. One of my initial concerns was communication. Working with a team across time zones and from a different culture brought some unique challenges. It took some time to get used to the time difference and navigate minor cultural differences, but once we got the rhythm, the benefits far outweighed the challenges. And waking up in the morning to a pile of completed work ready for review is an amazing feeling. While my business is very tax heavy, I have a handful of bookkeeping clients as well, and after about 2 years, I decided it was time to bring on a bookkeeper. That really frees up time, especially during tax season, and I can focus more on the review and client relationships. Around the same time, I brought on someone to help with my social media and administrative aspects of my business. For these 2 roles, I used online job remote-jobs.ph. I'll post the link below. I posted the job descriptions and sent follow-up questions to candidates who responded who looked like they might be a good fit. And based on their answers, I conducted a handful of interviews and selected from there. If you're thinking about building a remote team, I recommend establishing a clear communication process early on. Having weekly check-ins, using project management tools, and setting expectations makes a big difference in keeping everyone on the same page. Anyway, long story short, for some time I've been wanting to travel to the Philippines to meet the team in person, yet it didn't feel feasible given everything going on with work and kids and school and all that life stuff. But I finally just decided to make it happen, and my family was on board, so we made the plan. We left the youngest kids at home and we headed out across the Pacific. We flew into Cebu, where we adjusted to the time zone and explored a bit. I met half my team for the first time at the local airport, and then we took a flight to a smaller island where we met up with the rest of the team. And my original team member, when we met for the first time, rather than shake my hand, she poked it and exclaimed, "You're real." That moment truly highlighted just how far we'd come from being pixels on a screen. We shared some amazing meals, laughed, went on an awesome island hopping tour, and even made time for some business meetings and presentations. Meeting them in person reminded me that even though we work thousands of miles apart, we're still connected through our shared goals and the journey we've been on together. It was more than just a business trip. It was about building deeper relationships with the people I've gotten to know better and who have helped my business grow. In my next video, I'll dive into the tax benefits of the travel, meals, and how I structured this trip to be a fully deductible expense with my family. And speaking of deductions, it's really important as we approach the end of the year that you have your numbers together so you can be ready for taxes to optimize your tax situation. I'm opening my Reseller Tax Academy course back up in January. Use the link below to get on the waitlist for that, and use the other links for more resources to help you optimize your tax situation and overcome the anxiety so you can focus on building your business profitably.